You know, it'd be nice, we're still off here, but it'd be nice if we had a chiller, you know? Wouldn't it be nice if we had a chiller for this courtroom? Some are saying that they aren't gonna do the chiller until after.
Board of Commissioners.
I laughed. Did you hear me laugh when you guys said that? You weren't gonna do the chiller until after the trial?
Yeah.
I apologize for laughing.
Oh, no, I'm good with that. Maybe we can make it go quicker.
Sure.
They got it as soon as they get it.
Me too. We need it. Good. You feel it getting a little warmer in here. And
Yeah, it keeps going like it is. You'll be down to the shirts and the
Feel that,
t-shirt.
man? It's a
Well,
little warmer in here.
It was from when we were first in here.
by the end of the-
It's significantly warmer in here right now.
Tomorrow.
Is that on purpose?
Tomorrow will be warm.
You got a hot seat.
Right, right.
Well, we're gonna start back up. It's 2:00 and we have Mr. Mullador here for his 2:00 interview for the sheriff and sheriff position. And did you want to make an opening statement or anything like that? Give you a chance to if you wish.
Yes, I'd
Okay.
really appreciate it.
Sure.
I just want to say how it's an honor to be back here in this courtroom again. It's been 13 plus years since I've been here, and it's really nice to come back. And I just appreciate the panel for being here and conducting these interviews and really taking the time to take a hard look at who should be the next interim sheriff. So I just want to thank you for that and appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
And we'll go in the same order. Mr. Rossiter, as prosecutor, has some nice questions there that they'll ask, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
I have them in no particular order, but as I told Mr. Morris, I'm going to ask all of the same questions of all the candidates, so it's apples to apples. Occasionally, an answer may lead to a follow-up question, but essentially the questions will all be the same. So first of all, why do you want to be the Antrim County Sheriff?
Well, this goes back a ways. Okay, so when I first started my career, I started my career here in Bel Air, working for Bel Air PD. And then Terry Johnson was elected sheriff here. He was the former chief who hired me in Bel Air. And when I came over here and my job interview took place, I told the interview panel at the sheriff's office that one of my goals in life was to be the Antrim County Sheriff. And that was when I was 22 years old. I've never forgotten about that dream. I've still maintain that hope and aspiration someday to come back to my home county. I live in Ellsworth. I don't know if you guys know that or not. I have a wife who's here. I have 2 kids, Max and Molly. They're still in high school. Molly's a senior and Max is going into 9th grade. So he's officially in high school this year. So my roots are deep here in Antrim County. I have family. Both of my sets of parents live here, grandparents. And I just love this county and I want to come back.
Who would your choice of undersheriff be?
I haven't made that full choice yet. I have talked to a couple of people about it. I've talked to Travis Chellis, and I've also talked to another friend of mine who works for a different county.
And just mostly that question is asked so I understand that you're contemplating an undersheriff.
I am, yes.
Because the appointment is effective September 8th.
Yes.
Kind of a, do you plan in the future kind of a question.
Mhm.
So how important is training in your view for law enforcement officers?
I think it's one of the critical components. As you can see by my packet there, I put a hard focus personally on training.
So these are all, the packet that you handed out was all through the department, is that correct? Or department or office?
Yes. Yep. Mostly through the department office.
Do you take part in any training outside of what is required by your current office?
I do. I read a lot
Okay.
of
So that was one of the
leadership
areas?
books.
So what 3, if you said you read a lot, what 3 books would you put on a professional reading list?
Culture by Design, Find Your Why. And I can't remember the title of the book now, but it has to do with who are you as a leader.
Um, So you have that one checked off. My other three are, what about any personal defensive tactics, whether, combatives, hitting skills, jujitsu, taekwondo, anything of that nature?
Do I do that currently outside work? No.
What about situational defensive tactics, study-wise? And as I asked earlier, occasionally here, even in Northern Michigan, you end up with a barricaded individual that doesn't want to come out, and you either have to try to figure out how to coax him out or extract him. And that's what I mean by the situational tactics. Have you done anything outside of the office in that regard?
Other than all the years on SWAT with dealing directly with that kind of situation, barricaded suicidal gunmen for 10 years on the SWAT team. And I do have in that packet a SWAT leadership course that I took back in the day as well that dealt directly with those kind of issues.
Does any of your reading cover that situation?
Force Science News, I read a lot. So, and some of that does cover that, what's up to date and what's trending.
What about shooting skills? Do you practice marksmanship outside of what you're required to by the office?
I do shoot quite a bit.
Now I'm going to give you a scenario.
Mhm.
You're at the range to qualify for the department, and in this hypothetical, you score yourself. So you send the rounds down range, and you have to score your own target. Your best friend is shooting on the lane next to you, and he is an absolute non-shooter. And you know that he lies about his score to avoid being unqualified on the range and jeopardizing any future promotions. You know that he lied about it.
Mhm.
What do you do?
I call them out on it.
Okay, how so?
In what aspect
I mean, so
am I? Am I a supervisor
No,
or
you're
I'm his buddy?
yep, you're deputies. Not to demote you.
No, that's fine.
You're both of the same rank.
Okay.
Um,
I'll first and foremost tell him that he's lying about his target and to correct it.
okay, and he nods his head and says, "Okay." And then
I'm
you
still
find-
going to go to my supervisor and let him know.
Okay.
Yep.
You support the death penalty.
I think that's a very tough question. In Michigan, we don't have the death penalty.
Understandable. Yep.
So
So aside from compensation and pay, which you wouldn't have control of as the sheriff, what would you do to retain employees throughout the department, knowing that the office includes not just road patrol deputies, but corrections officers, administrative staff? How would you retain them?
I like to build a culture. Me personally, in my current role as undersheriff, I like to build a culture that is training. We're constantly training people, and interpersonal relationships is very, very important to me. Communication with my employees, talking to them frequently, asking them what's going on. A lot of these people, especially with what we're dealing with right now in society, their personal lives can sometimes be amiss as well, and just making sure that they're okay, not only at work, but at home. Are they doing fine? Are there any issues? Maybe we can help them at work through that. Maybe we could offer them some counseling or something like that through the county that would benefit them, because we do have programs available to employees. We use Uliance, and that was one of my main things that I did a few years ago after we were involved in an officer involved shooting. We had no resources for people to work through that, and I was directly involved in that officer involved shooting, and I had nothing to offer my guys. So I went back to the human resource director, and we got a team in there, and they're called Uliance. So we offer that to everybody, and that's posted, and they know how to use that and get a hold of people, and they have.
To date, what's been the most impactful felony case you've been involved in?
This was a very interesting case in Gaylord, where it was a murder. However, we didn't know the murder occurred. We were called by deputies downstate in Gratiot County, and they found a body wrapped up in a ditch, and they had no idea how he got there, what happened, but they know he was murdered. They sent him out for an autopsy, and it was confirmed that he was indeed murdered. So I worked with one of our sergeants, Sergeant Myler. I have a young office, very young office, and they've never handled anything like that in their lives. So I worked directly with the sergeant on that, and as well as some other deputies, and we tracked down who his family was. We tracked down where he lived. We tracked down who he may be associated with, and come to find out there was several things going on in that dynamic in that household, which we weren't aware of, some behavior issues, lifestyle issues, I guess you'd call them. And this person that was murdered, we found out was murdered by the person that lived in the trailer, which was an associate of his from back when he was in prison. But the only way that we found that out was because when detectives came up from Gratiot to help us with the investigation, when we were sitting in the trailer interviewing them, the two detectives noticed 2 little tiny pieces of blood spatter in the trailer, which was enough for us at that point then to secure a search warrant, call the crime lab in, and they ended up finding a demonstrative amount of blood underneath one of the cushions, and we put a really good case together on him for murder. And that stuck with me because that was a big case.
What administrative experience do you have?
I have extensive administrative experience. I've been an undersheriff now for going on 11 years. It'll be 11 years in January. Prior to that, I was a sergeant for right around 3 years here in Antrim County. So my administrative experience has been quite extensive as undersheriff. For the last 11 years, I've dealt with all avenues, all aspects of what it takes to run a department.
Budgets, personnel, scheduling?
Yes, I was in charge of scheduling for a long time, but then in trying to groom and teach the younger guys in the department that are coming up, their sergeants, I passed certain things off to them now to do so that they can build their resumes up and gain their experience in that. And we use BSNA. A lot of counties use BSNA, so I'm very familiar with that product. And I am the one that sets the budget every year for the sheriff's office for the road patrol side. I come up with the numbers and forecast what we're going to need possibly for the next year. And we go line by line, and we work with the finance committee and work with the county administrator and the finance director on that as well. So I have extensive experience in the budgeting process and all of that entails, and all the different lines that you can get bogged down in at times by that.
How would you describe your leadership philosophy?
My philosophy in leadership is teaching, mentoring. I just feel that is the way to go to create future leaders within your departments. I mentor all my guys and girls. There's no secrets with me. I'm an open book. My door's open all the time. If anybody has any problem whatsoever, they can come in and talk to me about it. I firmly believe that informed employees are a benefit to the office, because then they have a stake in the game and they understand more pieces to that pie and what it takes. Because sometimes employees can be not fully understanding because they don't necessarily, and it's not their role as an administrator. But if they're informed about the process, then I think that helps them understand how things run a little bit better, and that it's maybe not always up to them. There's other people that, are in control of the purse strings and whatnot of the county. So I think that training them and that leadership philosophy of trying to bring up the next generation in the department, I think is key, so that they understand their roles when they take over for us, because we're not going to be around forever someday.
How would you handle discipline?
I have a teaching approach when it comes to discipline. I think not all discipline has to be written write-ups. I think if you take an opportunity and teach these younger kids from a minor screw up that they had, if you just bring them in and talk to them, mentor them a little bit on it, and hope that the purpose of discipline isn't to discipline, it's to correct that behavior so that it doesn't happen again. So if I can just bring somebody into my office and we can talk about it and that behavior never happens again, I think that's a win. and that doesn't go in their file then. And now if it's an egregious violation, violation of policy or someone's constitutional rights, civil rights, things like that, well, then that's an egregious violation and that's a write-up and so on and so forth. And we take that where it needs to go.
What about and going back to a lot of the discipline is just to correct the problem so it doesn't happen again. What do you do if you have the same behavior repeating itself? Minor though it may be, they don't learn their lesson, so to speak. What's the
Correct.
next
Then that's
step?
progressive discipline.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you handle commendations? Is it important for employees to be recognized for jobs well done at some point every day?
I tell my staff, thank you every day. At least somebody gets a thank you every day. The accommodations I've done over the years, I've done life-saving awards. We do certificates, we do memos of thank you. If somebody goes above and beyond their duties that day and really helps out in an area, say that they weren't necessarily assigned to, but they come in and they fill that gap where needed, they're going to get a letter saying thank you.
How do you, and I couch the question the same way, given the last few years, law enforcement has sometimes not been looked upon favorably. How would you maintain or improve morale as a result of that, in light of that, rather?
That's a good question. I think daily you just need to show your appreciation to them. And I think a lot of times what happens, at least what I've noticed in my career, is that there's more people out there that appreciate sheriff's offices in the community, that they really feel like we're there for them and that we're every day we're trying to do something better for them. And I've gotten, to be quite frankly, I've gotten more thank yous and we appreciate yous than what's going on in the national media. At the local level, I think there's still a high volume of appreciation for what police do in Northern Michigan.
Here's another hypothetical. So you've worked with somebody for 20 years, side by side as co-equals, so to speak. And then you find yourself in a position of leadership. Are you able to separate the personal feelings and that personal friendship and make a decision based on the office policies and what needs to be done for the office, not what's best for the friendship?
I've had to do that a couple of times as in my role as undersheriff. I've had to let go a couple of people that I've known for a long time.
Is it easy?
It is not easy.
So as the undersheriff, you have a certain level of protection, so to speak, from a decision because there's somebody above you that can be. So you make a decision as the undersheriff, I don't like it. I have somebody to go and complain to besides you, right?
Yep.
As the sheriff, you don't have that luxury, so to speak. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility?
I believe that what I've done over my career, and I've made a career out of law enforcement and I've made a career out of trying to get better every single day. It's taken me different places. It took me away from Antrim County, and I'm hoping that it brings me back. I wouldn't be in the spot I'm in right now, standing in front of or sitting in front of you guys, if I didn't fully believe that I was capable of being a sheriff and that knowing everything that it entails. I think as a sheriff, you need to be firm in your opinions and you need to stand strong for what you believe in and what the law is and what the people's constitutional rights are. So yeah, I agree. It's the buck does stop at the sheriff, and I'm fully ready and capable to do that.
So how do you see your role as the sheriff and elected official? And I say that with this question. You believe a situation arises and you believe the right decision will cost you re-election. But the wrong decision, you'll take a little bit of heat, but you'll be re-elected. You choose the hard right or the easy wrong.
You always do what's right. I've always tried to do what's right throughout my whole career. That's what I believe has gotten me to this point where I'm at today. You know, the easy road isn't necessarily the one you want to take. If you have to stand up for something that you firmly believe and you think is right, you do it.
I have no further questions.
Okay. This guy.
Okay. What is your ideal work environment?
My ideal work environment is a good question. My ideal work environment is where we're running an office effectively as a sheriff. We're efficient. My people are all properly trained. Our focus is on the community and that we're there to serve the community every single day. And that my people are all working in conjunction to make that happen, like a well-oiled machine.
What was your greatest failure on the job?
Years ago, I was a young man, and you apply for things in a department that you are trying to go for. I applied for SWAT thinking that, I'm young, I can do SWAT. I should be able to get this easily. It's in the bag. Well, it wasn't in the bag. And one of my friends in the department got appointed to SWAT. And that was a huge letdown to me at the time. I was young. I thought, I've got this. But what it taught me was to never give up. It taught me that just because that my friend is on the SWAT team and I'm not isn't the end of the world. And yet, to me at the time, it was a big deal, but it taught me life lessons in the fact that you just keep trying and you never give up and you keep your head down. And years later, I ended up on the SWAT team after he was done. So
What inspired you to pursue a career in criminal justice?
I think it was a calling. Honestly, I think that the Lord had plans for me that I didn't necessarily see when I was a young man. I think law enforcement in general is a calling to come into this line of work and do this. And now, granted, it's not what you think it is when you're young. It turns out to be something a whole lot different. But I believe that certain people are made for these types of jobs and certain people aren't. And I think that the way that God made me, he made me a law enforcement officer. I just didn't know it when I was young.
How would your previous employers describe you?
Loyal, hardworking. I'm very loyal in the aspect of if I'm working for you, you've got everything I have. I give it my all. I don't go halfway on anything. It's just not the way I'm built. Everything I do it to the best of my ability.
What are your strengths as an officer and a leader?
My interpersonal skills, really, I focused on those for a long time because me personally, I like to build relationships with people, just personally and professionally. I really do. I think it's important because that establishes not only a friendship, but it establishes an open line of communication. And I deal with that every day, especially in a leadership role that I am in. I really focus on building those relationships with other department heads, with other key figures in the community. I really think that's important to establish those.
How do you handle a tense, stressful situation?
I generally take my time. I like to slow things down. If things are very tense, I like to slow things down in my mind, take my time and evaluate. I don't like to jump to a decision. Now, sometimes you have to. I've had to do that before in my career where you've had to just make a split second decision, and that's the one that you live with. Right, wrong, or indifferent. But I'm very pointed in my decision-making process. I like to think things through, and I like to evaluate.
Thank you. That was my last question.
Can you tell me what, in your opinion, and I know you haven't been here in a while, but obviously this is an Antrim County position.
Yes, sir.
And what is the most significant issue facing the Antrim County Sheriff's Department, in your opinion?
I think a mental health crisis in Antrim County
Okay.
is a really big problem. in northern Michigan, and how do we deal with that as a sheriff's office? But I don't think, correct. I agree, Your Honor. How do you? I think it's in several different stages though. I think there's a prevention side to the mental health crisis, as well as an enforcement side, obviously, if they commit a crime. But I also think it's a recovery issue as well. So like on the prevention side, getting these kids young while they're in school and getting to them with law enforcement and other community leaders to prevent them from using drugs, alcohol, tobacco. If we can prevent that from happening later down the road, I think that'll cut down on our mental health crisis that we're in right now, because methamphetamines, as you guys well know, is really on the rise in northern Michigan right now. And we've been dealing with the mental health aspects of that, I'm sure here as well as anywhere else. And so I think if we can get to these kids when they're young through youth coalitions and really enforcing them that it's not normal to do drugs or alcohol or tobacco, that 86% of youth in northern Michigan don't use marijuana, and socially norm these kids to where they're thinking that it's cool to not do drugs and alcohol. In the future, I think we'll cut down on our mental health crisis. But I also think that there's an aspect of enforcement to that. We still have to enforce the laws as we see fit, but by statute. So I think when you incarcerate, you also have to give it an opportunity for recovery. And where recovery comes into that is I partnership with FAN, Families Against Narcotics, and Hope Not Handcuffs. And I think a huge component of that mental health issue is from people suffering from substance use disorder. SUD is a huge problem. And I think if we allow or facilitate people getting into treatment quick, for instance, with Hope Not Handcuffs, I have a deputy, a peer recovery coach, and a family recovery coach. If this person suffered a near-death experience from an overdose the night before or 2 days before, that team goes out to their house. That officer's does not look like an officer. Regular polo on. He's got a Hope Not Handcuffs t-shirt on. And we go to that house and we say, we can get you into treatment today. We can streamline everything and we can get you in and get you treatment. Are you willing to go? I think that plays into the mental health disorders that we're seeing as well, and maybe hopefully cut down on some of that we're seeing come through our courts and through the sheriff's offices, and then lodging people because they have a mental health crisis. Let's not lodge them. Let's give them the help that they need.
Forgive me if you already mentioned this, but did you initiate that in Otsego County?
I did FAN and Hope Not Handcuffs, as well as the Substance Free Youth Coalition. I actually chair that.
Is community mental health going along with that on that?
They're involved. They're part of the coalition, the youth coalition.
Okay. What's your vision for the Antrim Sheriff's Department 10 years from now? Although I think you kind of hit on some of that.
That's where I'd like to see it go,
Sure.
Your Honor. I'd like to see a comprehensive system built into those three things: prevention, incarceration, and recovery. And I think if we can cross all three of those bridges and really focus on the youth in the county as well as everyone else, but really hit the youth, that we can really make a change.
Now, I know obviously, you're the undersheriff over in Otsego, but, and you live here though in Antrim. And are you aware of any specific issues that law enforcement has in helping the townships, the various townships throughout the county?
I know that there's been personnel shortages, yes, sir, and getting the proper coverage and enough officers on the street, and that's everywhere, to be quite honest with you. We suffer from that as well. Finding the help in law enforcement. I think the prosecutor alluded to it. We don't have a good image, and these kids just don't want to go into it anymore.
Well, I received, and I know everybody else did too, I would think, letters of support for all the candidates here today.
Mhm.
We received several in support of you, And this is the third time I've been a sheriff appointed, on a sheriff appointed committee. And I hope, everyone realizes that it isn't just, 35 people or 40 people. We represent 23,000 people. And I think by statute, there's a reason why these three are on the appointment for sheriff. And I think you'll see that at the end. But one thing that I found interesting, and one thing you may not be aware of, I'm sure you're aware that Mr. Rubin set out solicitation letters for you. And they were a form letter, all
Mhm.
started the same. But one of the people that he sent it to sent back his letter to them that I have a concern, or at least a question, because I don't understand what it means. And I think I just need to read what it is, and then you can address it. And I think, it says, I'm enclosing an attachment, and I'm not going to read all of it. I'm enclosing an attachment of the qualifications of Matt Mullador, who has turned in his application for this appointment. I have vetted Matt and understand that he will be a, all in caps, constitutional sheriff for Antrim County. Please take a moment to open the file and check out his resume. It's impressive. Matt's intention is to run for Antrim County Sheriff in 2024. Now, I took several constitutional law classes in undergrad at University of Michigan and graduate school, law school, Northwestern University as well. Nowhere is anything that I've ever seen a constitutional sheriff. Can you explain what that is to me?
I think there's a debate going on in society right now, what a constitutional sheriff is. My philosophy, what that means to me is I enforce what's in the Michigan Constitution and what's in the United States Constitution.
Okay. But you're the executive branch,
Mhm.
correct? And I don't disagree with you, but the legislature is the one that makes the laws.
Correct, sir.
And would you enforce the laws as drafted by the legislature,
I would.
or just simply what's in the Constitution? Sometimes it's different.
Correct. And I would enforce what's in the legislative laws and MCL code, sir.
Okay, good. I was quite frankly concerned when I saw that, and I thought, wait a minute. I didn't know what that meant. I have an idea what it means,
Mhm.
that I think is a concern for anyone in law enforcement, quite frankly. But good, glad to hear that, because you are the executive branch,
Correct.
okay. And of course, you're under this guy, but you have to answer to him. Let's see, did you have any other questions? Any follow-up?
I did not.
Just one.
Sure.
Is there anything that you have not been asked about that you feel is important for this board to be aware of?
No, but I do have a question for you, if that's okay.
You're the second one. I like it.
Just out of curiosity, I was wondering what you guys see, what you envision as your relationship professionally and across the board with the next sheriff of Antrim County.
You want, I can't answer really for the clerk, although I'll let her answer that. I've been a prosecutor and I've been a district judge, probate judge, family judge. And being a prosecutor, obviously you're gonna work closely with this man in his office. But at the same time, he's the chief law enforcement officer for the county.
Mhm.
I don't think they've changed that.
No.
And so you pretty much have to work with him. In my view, what I obviously am concerned about quite a bit in courtroom security through the sheriff's department. It's been tremendous with Sheriff Bean. I have absolutely no complaints at all with what he's been able to provide me, and it's, you know, we work together as far as scheduling and that sort of thing, but he's been absolutely tremendous in taking care of this courtroom. That's pretty much, obviously, if there's someone that we need brought in from downstate or whatever, I mean, he's willing to do whatever to accomplish what we can do. And I try and make it easy as well for him. But sure, I mean,
I guess in my department, 2020 election, Sheriff Bean and Under Sheriff Pratt at the time were very supportive in communication, in follow-up, in security. I've been escorted out of this building. My office has been closed with the lights left on. They waited, you know, the officers waited for every one of us to get our cars and drive down the road. I've had the county building swept on a commissioner night in fear during COVID that somebody was lurking in a restroom or hiding in an office. And I need to know that when I call for help, that is exactly what I need, because I don't call for it unless I need it. We've hit our buzzer. We have buzzers in our office for security to come running. We've used it for not just election things, but my office being circuit court, we're handling a lot of sensitive cases, whether it's divorces, child support, custody, personal protection orders. Criminals have practically leaped over our counter. So we could get their drug dealer out of jail so that man could get his supplies. So what I'm looking for is support, backup, knowing that we will have what we need when we need it.
I guess that leaves me to answer.
That's it. You.
Just a continued functional relationship with the office where I can bring concerns to the sheriff brings concerns to me. We may not always agree, but I think if we always agree, somebody's not really thinking or pushing. I mean, some days sparks have to fly, but a professional relationship where those differences can be discussed. And at the end of the day, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but you understand the why and the where and whatnot of the situation and can continue to function for the betterment of the county.
Thank you. That leads me to the point that I wanted to make as a result of that question. I work very closely with my judges, with the prosecutor, Mr. Rolla, and with our clerk as well. And one of the things that I do, I think very well, is communicate with our prosecutor, with all of the judges, the circuit court judges and the district court judge, as well as the clerk's office. I have provided security to my clerk before on election nights and whenever she asks for it, but not only to the clerk's office, I do it for district court, circuit court, anybody that feels uncomfortable. If they're about to leave work after a really hard case, they get help from us, from the sheriff's office, and we're there. If I have to assign a deputy to somebody, I do it. And we'll walk them out to their car and make sure they're in their car and on the way safely. And for your honor, we make the security of the courtroom a top priority. I would make security of the courtroom a top priority. I think if anything's going to pop off in a courtroom, that's where it's going to happen, and we have to be there and ready to handle it. And as far as the prosecutor is concerned, we work hand in hand. I work hand in hand with my prosecutor now. I value his professional opinion and our personal relationship as well. And we bounce stuff off each other all the time. And it's a good communication to have. Open door policy with him as well.
That's good to hear. I know personally, all three of us have had death threats. And you just, it kind of comes with the territory, but then again, it really doesn't. And some of the death threats are more serious than others.
Mhm.
And our sheriff has always been willing to go the extra mile and investigate and make a record of it. And I know whoever gets the appointment will follow through with that too. We understand, everybody understands that if the courts fail, the system fails. I mean,
Mhm.
the whole system does. So we can't have the intimidation by some individuals. And unfortunately, I think in this county, there's been a group who seek to intimidate everyone in law enforcement and the clerk's office and the prosecutor's office, which is unusual in my book. I mean, I've never seen it in 40 years, but what's new? But I'm confident that, whoever gets the appointment will follow through and make sure that we're all safe and you do your job. Let me, in that regard, let me just ask you one question I forgot to ask. Are there any laws that you know of right now on the books? And I'm not talking about something from 1802 that you can't, spit on the sidewalk. Oh, it's probably still there. That you would not enforce.
Walking on the street when sidewalk present.
Okay. That's about it. I mean,
That's one that jumped out my mind only because I may know somebody that wrote that ticket once.
oh, really? Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Some judge that used his or her discretion.
it stuck with me for years. It's just right in there.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just couldn't believe you wrote that ticket. I said, okay.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much. You have anything else?
No.
You have anything else?
No, okay.
Okay, we're starting about the same way here, about 20 minutes. We're gonna be in recess again or adjourned. Because if anybody else wants to watch in at 3, that's what the schedule was for Mr. Hope. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll help you out with the
Hey, you're all right. I don't care what you say about it.
Mr. Sheriff.
Your Honor?
When did he slip in here?
Oh, he was in there.
Been hiding.
Oh, trousers.
You slim thing,
We wouldn't
you.
let anybody sit.
Sneaky
Slim.
Yeah, she would use, so. I'm not gonna question her.
Oh,
Don't dare.